internationally and was like, oh, never again. It was so
Rookie
expensive.
mistake, rookie mistake. Oh, but you
I
can't blame
know.
Bill for not knowing. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not like I was trying to tell him that no, actually, I lived in the States. Do
Oh,
you
hey,
know what I
Bill.
mean?
I didn't care
While
too much.
while Charles is working on that, I had a question for you about GPS and being a trucker. Do you
Okay.
have a specific
Now
like
recording.
GPS that shows you trucking routes as opposed to just the entire road system?
Garmin's got an entire Garmin and Rand McNally and even I think TomTom, maybe not. They've got an entire line of devices that are
Okay, cool.
just for, and they're actually pretty good. They know you punch in your dimensions. Like in my case, it's 80 feet by 110 inches wide by
Yeah.
13.6 tall, and then it knows which routes
Oh,
are
and you can do height too. That's
height.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, because there's bridges that
Oh, sure.
we could.
Well, what made me think of it is I saw a Walmart truck coming down like a very long route yesterday, and I'm like, they obviously didn't know where they were going, and made me. And my wife said, "Well, wouldn't they have GPS that's specific for trucks?" I said, "You know what? I'll ask Bill."
They almost
So there you
certainly do, and some of those companies they've got their own bespoke software that's piped into some device that they use, and they're routed by their company right down to their. Some of them are being
Oh,
told
for like the
where to
most efficient
fuel.
route
Yeah,
and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
big companies like that, they're told where to fuel and where to stop for the night.
Well, I mean, it
Which,
makes sense.
yeah, I mean it does. I wouldn't be able to drive like that because I'm just too old and been doing it too long.
Yeah.
But because I got my hole in the wall out of the way places that I like to go to that where the rookies and the knuckleheads
They don't come to.
they don't know
Yeah.
about them because they're
Nobody's
kind of
gonna
off.
back into your truck.
Oh gosh,
I've
they
watched so many Swift videos.
Swift is a behemoth of a company,
Yeah,
and
I
they're
know.
self-insured, and I don't see how they're able to pull it off because they've got some of the worst
Apparently,
accident
because
ratings.
there's hours worth of video of like guys backing into
behemoth
each
of a
other and
company.
like just ridiculous mistakes that you're like, how are you driving right now? But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to get us off on a wild tangent.
No,
I just thought I'd
that's
ask. So Charles, any luck? Nope,
nothing.
nothing, man. So you're seeing that you've got the headset set for the output, obviously, but is it set for input as well? Yeah. Have you tried switching your inputs between different things? Because that sometimes will help too if you like switch off. Like just switch to your internal mic or your webcam mic just so we can like hear you and make sure you're getting audio through your system at all.
Hey,
Yeah. Okay.
Hey.
So now we can hear you on that. Now try switching back to the headset.
Nothing.
Yeah. Now try going back to the headset. Sometimes that does it. No. Bummer.
so I guess I could be SOL. So
I mean, that's not
Bad, actually.
terrible. I mean, what you have now isn't like atrocious. It's not as good as
What was
as a
that?
mic would
Your
be.
built-in microphone on the laptop, or
What were you just using to say what you said?
oh, I'm using the internal built-in.
Okay, it's not terrible.
it's better than
Honestly,
nothing.
if you want to
Yeah.
do that, that's fine. I mean, you can keep trying to change it if you want, but we know that works at least. So,
Okay, well,
and it doesn't
Hey.
sound that bad. So,
okay, we'll go with this then for now,
okay, hey man, it is what it is.
as they say.
Life on the edge.
Sis!
Like on the bleeding edge.
That's right. All right, who's leading this crazy thing?
William Curtis is doing it, he says.
Oh, am
Oh,
I?
is he?
That's what you said yesterday.
What, was I there for that conversation?
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
Okay. I'm gonna do it.
I don't mind, man. Whatever. I think I did the last one.
I haven't done one in a while. It doesn't matter.
Eric, if you want to go ahead, because I did the one, not the last one, but the one
Sure.
before. So, but hang on a
Yeah,
second.
I could do it.
All right.
Hold your horses.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1. I'm going to start the recording. Or, well,
Oh,
yeah. 3, 2, 1. All right.
All right.
And that's mostly just so I can find the beginning in the waveform.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you start recording and we talk for another 10 minutes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, which never happens.
No, never.
All right. Here we go. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 465.
That's
Bill?
it. Oh, power's on. I'm Bill.
Is the power really on? Really?
Yeah, it
Is
is.
it
Well, the
a case
lights
of the
are on and
power's on,
nobody's
but
home.
the
I was my
lights are on,
brain
but
was
nobody's
my
home?
brain was waiting for the this is episode 465.5.
Five, I know.
This is staying
Yeah.
in the recording, by the way.
Yes,
Of course.
100%. Serves me right. I'm Majid.
Feeling like the guy who melts in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm Eric.
Still living the dream. I'm Charles.
I recently upgraded to Mint 22.1, and I'm Jim.
All right. Well, first up in the news, we've got Mint 22.2 betas are now in testing. The Arch AUR under fire once more as malware resurfaces. WN13 Trixie release date is officially confirmed, and Hyperland HyperPerks has been launched. In security and privacy, introducing Proton Authenticator, secure two-factor authentication your way. And Microsoft recall issues. Type faster, Majid. What is
That's
it?
it. It's just that.
Okay.
There's issues.
Oh,
There's
issues. Oh, I thought you meant issues as like issued a new thing.
No.
Boy, we are on the ball today, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
Sharp as a bowling
Microsoft
ball.
recall issues. Which, hey, who would imagine there'd be issues with recall? I can't believe it.
I know.
Shocked.
I just
Anyway,
wanna
and
turn
then
it
check
off.
this out. Yeah, right. Yeah, if you can, that's the problem,
Yeah.
right? And check this out. We've got Ignition, which is an application that allows you to manage all of your startup apps and scripts. And finally, in Vibrations from the Ether, we have some feedback from a listener. And please remember, if you'd like to follow along with our discussions, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description at mintcast.org/show-notes. All right. And in the news, first up, we have Bill.
Yeah, the Mint 22.2 beta ISO is now in testing. And to read on, the beta ISOs for Mint 22.2 are now in the testing phase as of 1100 UTC, Friday, August 1st. This includes all 3 variants, that being Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE. I am eagerly anticipating the time to... I've got a new little 13-inch laptop on the way that I'm going to put that on when it gets here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
and
So what's the laptop?
It's a Chewy.
Oh, that Chewy that you were telling
Yeah.
me about. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. That'd be interesting.
Well, Dave from Three Fat Truckers has got one, and he's running Windows 11 on it, and I figure if it'll run Windows 11, it'll run anything. Of course,
The
that's
only
not
thing-
always true, is it?
Yeah. No. The only thing I'd say is, a couple of years ago, my son has got a Huawei laptop, which actually has lasted really well, actually 3+ years, right? And anyway, there was some issue, and I said to him, maybe we could put Linux onto it, and he was like, okay, fine. So we did put Linux onto it, and found out that the sound didn't work, and then apparently it's because it's a specific proprietary driver that only Huawei use in their thing, which meant and they're never going to give Linux support for it. So we ended up going back to Windows 11. The reason I'm mentioning that is that's the one thing with some of these Chinese things, because they might be using not standard components. But hey ho, try it out and see what happens, innit?
Yeah.
What is it exactly that you're looking forward to in the new release?
Well, some new functions for Focusrite devices in the kernel. They've added some support for a couple of devices that I own that I've not been able to use yet. I've got one called the Vocaster that it works kind of, but Pipewire and Pulse Audio don't quite understand what all of the inputs are. And so
wouldn't that be on a kernel level though?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. The new kernel has that functionality, and they've upgraded. It's got the upgraded. What do they call it? Scarlet. Also, Scarlet's control has an upgrade which gives you control over that device too. So I'm kind of looking forward to trying that out because it's a little bit more of a device geared towards podcasting instead of.
I vaguely remember something about that you would be able to do kernel upgrades in between releases, and I think that might have been LTS releases actually.
Well,
you couldn't do that before, could you?
Well,
unless
you
got
can
an
get
Edge ISO or something.
Well, you can get a package from Canonical called Mainline, and you can actually get newer. But I wouldn't have access to the upgraded version of Scarlet Control or whatever it's called. Also Scarlet Control, which that's also so it's a combination of both of those things, really, that I'm looking forward to. That's honestly, and then kind of inching a little bit more towards thanks Moss. Inching a little bit closer towards Wayland support on Cinnamon. I'm looking forward to that. I don't know why. I don't know why I care about that. Maybe just academically, I suppose. But Cinnamon's a modern desktop.
Wow. Cinnamon is a traditional modern desktop. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's modern in that it's got all of the modern tooling as far as it's a good middle of the road between something like KDE Plasma and something like GNOME. I
still think Cinnamon is better on like proper devices, computers with mouses and keyboards.
Well, it's hardware accelerated. It outright requires hardware acceleration pretty much to work right.
Yeah, and whenever I've had it on a laptop, I've always kind of felt a bit, I don't know. The only reason I'm saying this is because I downloaded Cinnamon onto my CashOS laptop, and it was my first time for a long time using Cinnamon that's not been Mint. So it's been interesting. The default theme looks a lot better than it used to.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to just look down through the release notes. It is, Mint will typically do a lot of like quality of life improvements and things like that. But if you just look down through here, it is incredible the amount of stuff that they've done in this release.
Yeah.
Language support, all these new technology things with 2404 as the base and 6.8 kernel with HWE series. Switching to Pipewire as the default, because they hadn't done that yet. There's just so many things. They brought back the online accounts that had been broken by GNOME 46.
It's interesting
the
because
stuff, the software manager is way improved. It's just like on and on and on. Mint, you can say that Mint is like a beginner distro, or it's not like hardcore Linux or whatever. But it is incredible the amount of stuff that they do release to release.
I remember that before 22.1 come out. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, it's just a point release. What's really going to be that great in it? What's the big deal? And then again, like you kind of said, you kind of read through the release notes and you're kind of like, man, they've done some work. And I've noticed the same thing with this one, as you rightly say, for what is a mid-cycle point release in inverted commas based on an LTS that's over a year old, there's a lot of work on it. It would have been very easy to just kind of, yeah, here's the new kernel, here's a few things on cinnamon, see you in 6 months time, which is good. Jim, you're actually on 22.1 now, aren't you? Because you said you'd upgraded.
Yeah, that's right. I have been on Mint only since 21.3 when I switched over to Linux in October of 2023. So I was dreading upgrading because I tried it on one of my desktops that I didn't have much customization, and the upgrade process did not work. Something got messed up. So I ended up doing a fresh install, and on my laptop that I'm communicating with you on right now, I was literally out of hard drive space, so I had no choice but to buy a new hard drive and do a fresh install, and that's what I did. And yeah, there's a few differences between 22.1 and 21.3, but for me, the real pain point was recreating all my apps, Firefox, Thunderbird, bringing over the mailboxes, I was holding my breath multiple times this week as I just want everything to look just like it used to, so, and I'm still installing all the lesser important programs as I go, but I've got a functional system now at least.
So, I mean, hopefully you can, when 22.2 comes out, you can just do an in-place upgrade rather than having to,
yes,
nuke and pave. Although, is it still Mint? I don't want to say Mint policy, but it's always been a thing I remember from way back that they would always say nuke and pave is better than an in-place upgrade. And for a while, it used to be difficult to do an in-place upgrade. I remember.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be true.
I think if you're going between the major releases, so if you're going from 21 to 22, then yeah, they have an expectation that you are just going to nuke and pave. Or, I mean, there are plenty of ways. We say nuke and pave. I mean, there are lots of ways to upgrade. The installer itself lets you just select a partition. So if you have a system partition that is separate from your home partition, or let's say your home partition is separate, that's just good policy. It's maybe not something that new users know how to do or think to do. And maybe Mint would do better with, having a custom partitioning scheme like that. Mm-hmm. That way you would be able to just, because if you remember in the installers, a lot of them, you could just literally pick the partition out of the what is it, a pictogram of the disk or whatever, and just say replace. And by replacing, if it was just the system partition and your home partition was separate from that, then you could safely do that and not lose your data. Now, to Jim's point, yes, you would lose your applications, but there's a way, next time you do that, there's a way to just do an export a list out of, what is it? It's not apt. I mean, you can do it out of apt, but it's easier if you do it out. I'm trying to think of the app to do it with, but it's I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But anyway,
is this the thing when they talk about YAML configuration?
No. This is literally it dumps out a text-based list of everything that is an apt installed application or package that you installed as a user.
So I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and so then you're able to just whenever you
Deja Dupe does that, I think.
Well, so you could you could always do a backup thing. What is it? It's depackage. I'm sorry. So that's what I was trying to think of. So depackage, which is sort of underneath of apt.
So you're just talking about populating a list or generating a list.
Yeah, all you do is you depackage and then you redirect it to a text output,
right.
Just a text file, and then you do the opposite on the new system. So you say depackage, install, and then there's either that or you can do I've made a really easy little bash script that just says as a for loop basically, and so for each line item it just goes through and does the install. And actually, I think in Mint, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look in the package manager. I think there's a way to export your packages, a list of your packages, and then even import that list on a new version of Mint. They used to do that, and maybe they don't anymore, but I'd have to look to make sure. So anyway, they've gone to great lengths to make it as painless as possible. to do that, refresh or nuke and pave or whatever. But yeah, they still do recommend that for major releases at least, because point releases from 21.1 to 21.2, that was just a straight upgrade because you're on the same base. The packages haven't changed radically between, releases. But keep in mind, 21 series was based on 2204. And 22 series is based on 2404. So that's a pretty significant upgrade path. So,
and it's always going to be better to nuke, but and I don't remember what release it was, but it was a recent, like within the last 3 years or so, they came out with the Mint upgrade tool, which you only see this tool when it's time to do major release upgrades, and that's the whole purpose of this thing. And it has to be executed from the command line. It's a GUI application, but it has to be executed from the command line because there's no desktop file for it, and it's just a sudo mint upgrade. And then that does if you absolutely cannot do nuke and pave, but that won't work for it. Doesn't. It's not the same thing as Ubuntu's do release upgrade thing where you can choose between development releases and LTS releases and whatnot. It's just to go from one major release to the next. And I don't know if the upgrade manager will tell you it's time to do that, or because I've always just kind of done it manually myself because I know when the release comes out. But it seems to me like that's a good idea. It's a good idea to wait for the first point release if you're talking about a production machine. Just like with Ubuntu, wait for the point
with Ubuntu
release.
it's always the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't, even when the new LTS comes out, don't take the LTS. Wait till the first point release.
But we live on the edge because we're bad men. We like to.
You especially are a bad man. That's
are.
just a general statement, but I mean, because that actually flows quite nicely into the next thing, doesn't it?
Oh, gee whiz, Arch Linux. Yeah, and I don't have
Arch. Do you run Arch? Bro?
I am a huge Arch user.
Really?
Not afraid to tell
idea
you.
about that. No idea.
Majid has dragged me out to admit it in public.
I've outed you. I've got you out of the closet, have I?
We got a link in the show notes. There's an article in linuxiac.com, Arch Under Fire, once more as malware resurfaces. And this is in reference to, recently there was a big what to do about among some others, probably one of the most heavily used AUR packages in the AUR, which is the Google Chrome stable package, which is the default method of installing Google Chrome proper to an Arch box, because in order for it to be in the regular Arch repository, there has to be a pre-built binary, and that's just not how that's going to happen with Google Chrome, because you have to go and get the deb package, because Google Chrome only provides debs and RPMs, so they have to go get the deb package and extract all that out of the deb, and pull stuff out of it, whatnot. I don't know. And so it's in the AUR. That's just always been a good place for it. Well, somebody's put some malware in there.
So shock horror, the AUR has dodgy scripts in it.
Look, from the beginning, they've always made it absolutely clear. This is not a beginner's distro, to be sure. Start with.
100%.
And you have to be aware of what you're taking on when you're using Arch, just alone. When you're using Arch, then you're taking it to a whole new level, and I mean several layers up. When you say, okay, I got Arch running, I'm going to start using the Arch user repository. Because you could honestly get by just fine, especially nowadays with Flatpaks and snaps and everything. You could get by without the AUR, but there are still a lot of edge case and a lot of esoteric software out there that's never going to end up in anybody's repository, but there it is in the AUR. But it's always been made clear. Go and look at this stuff. Understand what you're looking at. Understand what you are downloading and executing, what you are installing on your system. You know, it has to be, the AUR has to be an open method of installing software. And that's always going to be one of its strengths and one of its weaknesses simultaneously.
This is 100% why I would never recommend Arch to a new user.
No,
Because they're going to read somewhere, oh, AUR. And then they're going to realize, oh, there's AUR helper. So I'll just use, PACAR or whatever, some AUR thing. And it's okay because it's Arch and it's hosted by Arch. So it can't be that bad, right? And I mean, and I'm not trying to knock it because like Bill said, for more advanced users, for people who understand what they're doing, like this is a service for users or by users for other users, right?
Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
normally people who have the technical acumen to be able to create a build file and then, create the AUR page and, fill everything out. So it's someone who's actually putting effort behind it. And I've always said that, the common wisdom should be if you can sort and see that it's a popular package, then odds are you're fine. Like it's very unlikely that someone has, has tampered with that. Although it is possible if something's orphan for someone to then take it over and do something with it, almost like an extension in a browser in a way. That's kind of how I look at it, where it's like you're taking a leap of faith because you're not really reading the code of a extension, in your browser. You can look at the build file, but a lot of times, especially if it's a complicated package, it's going to be maybe a bit hard and technical to understand.
As
right?
someone who's just recently started delving my hand back in with Arch-based distros, yes, I agree with you 100%. And you need to know how the build file works to understand what is being said when all this because as you say AUI, there be dragons, everybody, it's it's made very clear this is a dangerous place to be if you don't know what you're doing, and only use if you know what you're doing, and generally you're more technically adept, hence you're there. So in one sense I'm kind of like, well, this is just the thing that happens. I did find it funny though that it was Google Chrome, because I did think to myself, which Arch user is deciding to use Google Chrome?
Therein lies
mean?
the rub, because
You don't have a choice, man.
That being said, everything we said, it still should not have happened, because Google Chrome stable I cannot think of another AUR package that would have more installs than Google Chrome stable. And that's just because, anecdotal, but still, as popular as Google Chrome is, Arch users are going to want to be able to install it. And that's really outside of getting the Flatpak or the Snap or something, that's going to be your way of installing it on Arch. So I'm really not sure how somebody got access to the package build, because there's a similar permission structure to the actual repositories in Arch, where you have people assigned to these packages, and they're the ones that are allowed to make changes. So there must have been somebody that, I don't know, hacked their way in. And
let's also consider that someone might have created something that looked like the Google package.
But how did they get it added into that, though?
Well, no. I'm saying that. Oh, is it directly from the package itself, or was it like a?
If you change, you have to tell the script, the package build is what it's called, to go and get this software, download it, and then either add it to the build dependencies or add it as a secondary dependency, something that goes along with the software. And only certain people have access, read-write access to the package build. And usually it's just the one maintainer So presumably somebody got access, read-write access to that particular package build or the install script, because there's stuff out there that needs like a secondary install script, and that'll also be in the AUR next to the package build. And that's how the AUR works. It just downloads this package build, which is just a script, and then it executes that script, which has got a lot of wget and pacman commands in it, and a lot of metadata as to stuff you might need to know about where the package is coming from and whatnot. Version numbers, required version numbers, and all that stuff. But that's still only accessible to the person who is assigned to handle that package. So this is still somewhat egregious that somebody somehow gained access to Google Chrome stable.
Right.
And
well, what's funny is if you look at the commit, so they added a Python command, and the HTML address is a .lol address.
I mean,
which really kind of stands out.
somebody with the authority to push that to prod.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing nowadays? Are we just not even checking these things and just?
But see, this is what you were saying. It's the AUR.
Yeah.
And
in a way, maybe I'm kind of glad when things like this happen in a small way.
It reminds people. Yeah, it reminds people what they're dealing with. Yeah.
But the problem is, sometimes the wrong message comes across where, well, this is just a bad distribution to use. Well, maybe it's the wrong distribution to use if you don't understand what you're getting into.
That's my. It isn't that Arch is insurmountably difficult, especially today. I'd say it's easier now than ever.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that you just kind of have to have a little bit of that extra, understanding of what you're doing. And it's just, it's the cliche line of with great power comes great responsibility, right? I mean, the fact that they've given users a way to do this and share these package builds is obviously one of the keys to the success of the distribution. So it's something they're not going to just get rid of. But with the increased popularity of Linux in general, this is one of those problems of course, this is going to start happening more and more as more people. I mean, maybe this guy...
Especially when you start seeing, because a lot of the recent kind of drive towards Linux has been done a lot by gamers. You see a lot of gamer channels, who are putting on Bazai or Kashi or Garuda, these kinds of distros, often which are Arch-based, so they can get the max amount of performance out of their system. So it's kind of a little bit like, I think this is a problem that's going to happen more, because I think in the past, it was rare for people, especially beginners, to even go towards anything Arch-based. But now, as I said, you've got people who are gamers who are now, instead of going onto Windows 11, are saying, okay, let's try SteamOS, because SteamOS is an Arch-based one, and then et cetera, et cetera. Do you see what I mean? So I think this may well be a problem that gets worse before it gets better.
And I wonder, I don't want to throw blame at anybody, but, you got distros like Manjaro, which really kind of bill themselves. I imagine if you asked them, they would say they were more for an intermediate type user that's trying to work their way to an Arch kind of thing. But Manjaro is easy enough to get up and running and use for beginners, I think. I do believe. And they can get into a lot of these same problems, because the beginners are likely to use something like Chrome because they haven't developed all those bad attitudes towards Google and things like people like us have, or people like we have. Sorry, Moss. And is it the fault of distributions like, and then even furthermore, distributions like Endeavor OS, where you do end up with a right up to date one to one.
I don't think it's a problem for, again, this is like you said. I mean, you were very correct in saying like the expectation, and they are very upfront about this, is like the AUR is somewhere that you can get in trouble if you don't know what you're doing. And they say, check the package build, read it. It is up to you, your responsibility, you know? So I have no problem with that. I don't, if they were to bill it as something that was, you know, bulletproof and infallible, then yeah, that would be a problem, but they're not. And I think
True.
maybe what they've
I
learned out of
agree.
this is that they need to maybe have some better controls. Simple
Yeah.
as that.
I agree. As I said, my only thing is that in the past, like, I mean, I don't know about yourself, but, you know, whenever if anybody was interested in Linux and they'd come to you and say, what kind of distro should I go for? And you'd say, oh, well, you know, Mint or Ubuntu, something, one of the so-called beginner-friendly distros is what you talk about. And as I said, I've just started seeing all these videos by these so-called influencers, gamer influencers, who are like, I'm fed up with this. I'm going to move to CachyOS straight from Windows. And you're like going, okay, and people are watching, and what was it? One guy, what was that PewDiePie guy, the guy who I think he probably started it off, and he was like, yeah, I'm now on Arch and I'm running Hyperland, and I've seen random people asking me about that, and I'm like, you couldn't, install anything safely on your Windows PC. You really shouldn't be going anywhere near this.
If they do
You
it
know.
safely, I would say, listen, download distro box, or not distro box, VirtualBox, and try it out, play around with it. But there's smart ways to do it. Don't just like stick a thumb drive in your computer and like YOLO it. Like that's kind of a dumb thing to do. And if that's how you approach it, I mean, that's, of course, you see those kind of comments on, like, especially Reddit, where it's like, I tried CachyOS and it overwrote my disk, and it's like, well,
That's because you
did
told
you
it
do
to.
it? Yeah, because you did, because you exactly, you didn't know what you were doing. Like, what did you expect to happen?
This reminds me of last week's conversation on OTC about, do we necessarily want these people?
No, and that's the thing. I think there is a certain type of person who's going to get along with Linux in general. I think there are certain distros that are easier for most people to use, but it's different enough. And there should not be this that whole fallacy of the year of the Linux desktop is just silly in my mind, because everybody thinks they want this, like they evangelize for it, but do you really want, like, most of the people or that you've come in contact with on a daily basis to be running or any Linux distro? Because they're gonna have that takeaway of, well, it didn't work for me, so therefore it's no good, and I think it would just be worse than better. Because the people who are interested in it, who have a natural curiosity, who are going to investigate and research the right way to do something before just diving in like a numbskull, those are the people that are going to be like, wow, like you. Exactly. It's just like, wow, this is really cool. And I like the fact that I have so much control, and, and that's who you want using Linux.
Yeah,
Not the unwashed masses.
and
I mean, I remember about this time last year. Was it this time last year? Or was it even longer ago? 2 years ago, when I was trying out Endeavour OS, and and I remember after about 2 months, I was like, I am worried that I have really no idea what I'm doing here, because there would be prompts that would come up, and you have to update your mirror and all this kind of stuff. And in the end,
I would argue that nobody should touch Endeavor until they know how to use Arch, because Endeavor is just, it's to say it's Arch on easy mode is not even a fundamentally correct way to put it. It's an easy way to install Arch, but then once it's installed, you're on your own there, hero.
Exactly. And so and after a couple of months, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move back, and that's why I've only just now started experimenting again on the Arch side.
Break your heart, man.
But I mean, the point I'm just trying
Stay
to say
away from
is
Google
that
Chrome.
you need, definitely stay away from Google Chrome. It serves you right. Why the hell? It's spyware anyway. It's malware anyway. What was wrong with you? It's supposed to be on Linux, free and open source.
Yeah, what are you here for if you're just going to use Chrome? Go get a
Yeah.
Chromebook.
Yeah.
I would
I
say
get
at the
that.
very least, you should, if you need a Chromium-based browser, why not get ungoogled Chromium, not Google Chrome?
Or just Chromium. I mean, the
Yeah.
There's
thing.
so many, isn't there? Brave, Vivaldi. I mean, there's just loads. You've got no excuse really. It's like, yeah. I mean, I
Well, just
genuinely
use
can't think
Firefox
of any.
because the
I think it's
tooling.
just what
It's what
what
people are
people
used to.
know. It's what
Yeah.
people know, and also don't forget there are things that where if you work for a company, like their IT will tell you have to be running Google Chrome, nothing else, nothing derivative,
I'm willing to
nothing
bet
like.
they're also not going to want you to run Arch for a
Or they
corporate
want
In a
you
lot
environment.
of cases, they may not care because it's browser based. Like the school that my kid goes to, they don't really care what system you're using. But if you were to have a problem with their class software that's browser based, and you tell them you're using Vivaldi, they're going to go, "What?" Like, no,
Yeah.
use Google Chrome or Edge. That's
Yeah.
the other one. They'll probably
So,
just be like,
d-
use Edge.
Yeah, I was just going to say Edge. Yeah, most
yeah.
schools want you to Edge or Chrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
So
mean, I find it funny actually because I remember in the early days of Google Chrome, the late noughties, early teens, um, it was you couldn't in a lot of education and a lot of health sector stuff, you couldn't use Google Chrome because it was seen as a security threat, and you had to use Internet Explorer and this, that, and the other. And now you go to your IT department, and they're like, "Oh, you make sure you use either Chrome or Edge," and I'm kind of like, "How things have changed." But anyway, I think I think we need
Yeah, we
to
should-
Well,
we should
just
move
one more
on.
comment.
Yeah, go on.
Comment. I don't know if you guys remember several years ago when Mint, I think ISO got compromised for the install. I don't know if you remember this big uproar.
Yeah, I remember.
A lot of Linux podcast shows just killing
Yeah.
Mint. And I thought it was ironic. Oh, don't use Mint, stay away from it. It's awful. It's awful. Look, these guys can't get their act together. And then I wonder if these same shows are. Now, it wasn't obviously the ISO. Still it got in and created some malware.
The honest truth is you can shame someone for a security breach, but the truth is if they want in, they're going to get in.
Yep.
I mean, there is nobody that is bulletproof and 100% secure, and it's a little, I don't know. I think it's disingenuous to like security shame someone unless it was a ridiculously stupid mistake. Then yeah, of course. But that was someone doing anyway. Yeah, we're gonna move on.
Schadenfreude is a thing. Put it that
Yeah,
way.
it is.
Schadenfreude
And,
is a
and
thing.
listen, a news story is a news story, and you have to hype it up. So there you go. But anyway, so I have an item here about Debian 13 Trixie is being released. It's the official date is August 9th, and just wanted to cover the notable additions and changes. So this is the first one with support for the RISC-V 64 architecture, which is expected to speed adoption of RISC-V, which is a free and open standard instruction set architecture, so an alternative to ARM and x86. So I think that's pretty
quivering. Bill has been waiting for this his whole life. A
He
Risk
has?
5.
Oh,
because it sounds exciting.
well,
Every year in predictions, he makes the prediction.
Oh
There'll
yeah.
there'll be a
what
Risk
else am I going to
5.
predict? Everything.
So
Oh, yeah.
this year, I think you're right because honestly, I think if you can get Debian to run on these boards, I think it's probably a short set of or list of boards that'll run, but IoT type stuff, that really starts opening the door because it's Debian, right? I mean, you have a great base for this, and now you're less afraid of maybe using that as an option. So anyway,
That
that was
plus,
cool.
if
And then,
Debian's got a base system for it, then eventually Ubuntu can.
it's going to downstream.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and so I thought that was pretty exciting. And already, when you go to download Debian, like it's kind of wild because they have 7 architectures they support, which is pretty crazy. along with S390X and partial 32-bit userland on 64-bit systems. So that's to support gaming, obviously, but and legacy applications. But so that's always been amazing to me that they package, like, let's see, what is it down here? The 59,000 total packages in 7 architectures, which is just like, wow, that's unbelievable. But
That's nuts.
so they've done security enhancements, improvements, system improvements, software updates, and that's, like I said, there's 59,551 total packages, 11,294 new, 42,821 updated, and 9,519 removed. So much work in that repository, going through all those packages. It's insane, you know.
Can you
So when it
imagine?
said-
Can
so-
you
so- so when it
imagine?
says, sorry, I was just going to say, when it says ARM64, is that specific, or is that a general? You know,
I
is
think
that
they're-
right?
I think
Does that
they're-
mean like Raspberry Pis, or does that mean anything with an ARM?
Yeah, I think there are certain subsets of ARM that they're actually supporting, and I think they have a compatibility list.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, it's
anyway,
like
Bill.
it's like a lot of 64-bit x86 kernels. The Raspberry Pi has its own kernel just because there's modules that the Pi needs in addition to the ARM64.
Bill,
But that
you were
does.
starting to say, could you imagine?
Could you imagine
that-
Linux
managing
without
that?
Debian? Even nowadays, could you? I mean, how could we even exist? How could?
Yeah.
I mean, leaving aside all of the derivatives of Debian, all of the other stuff that's out there that one way or the other takes some of its lead from people in the Debian project, and a lot of stuff that comes from that. You know, what would we be left with? Honestly, all of the work that Debian does, it's you cannot overstate how important the Debian project is to the entire Linux ecosystem.
Oh yeah, and there are tools that'll take a deb package and convert it into like an RPM so that you can run it on a RPM
Yeah, you got
based system.
DevTap on Arch.
Yep.
For doing
Yeah,
that.
so there are, yeah, exactly, to go to the Arch package format. So that, I mean, Arch is sort of like the foundation of so much of the Linux realm, the desktop Linux. Well, not just desktop, server as well.
Yeah.
And you know, now that they've included the hardware enablement stuff and the newer kernels and the non-free packages, essentially, like it's a pretty killer desktop to run. I installed it on my Latitude, Dell Latitude 5290, the 2-in-1 touch.
Yeah.
You know, and it's great. It runs so good, like super fast. Super, you know, it's like it just doesn't have that extra layer of stuff that Ubuntu does that adds just that like 25% of like, you know, weight that you feel.
What desktop you running?
GNOME.
GNOME. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and they
pretty
have,
good.
so that's part of this too, is they have GNOME 48, Plasma 6.3, LXD 13, LXQT 2.1.0, and XFC 4.20. So really up-to-date stuff, up-to-date kernel, hardware enablement, you know, non-free stuff. So as a desktop environment, like it's gotten very good recently within the last few years. So
Yeah, I'm tempted to, because I've never actually tried vanilla Debian.
yeah,
know what I
it's gotten very good. I mean, it was difficult before because with no patent encumbered or blobs or anything like that, it made it a little challenging to run vanilla Debian on certain hardware, and especially with like, you know, laptops and some of the hardware that laptops use, like the GPUs and the stuff like that. It was not easy. Whereas now they've made, you know, some pretty. Now there's still you still can't do PPAs, I don't think, because that's an Ubuntu thing. So there's still some things that it's not exactly like running Ubuntu, but it's apt. So you're gonna have an understanding.
Well, I mean, and nowadays, do you really need PPAs when you've got Flatpaks and
No,
Snap?
no,
Snap
not really.
images? Yeah.
I mean, unless it's a system, you know, like a core level, sort of like system level package, because Flatpak's still not going to help you with that. But anyway,
You know,
so yeah, the one other thing that I thought was really interesting is like the timeline. You know, like I imagine you might not get this reference, but you know how bill becomes a law. Like there was this cartoon that when we were kids, like it explained it. Anyway, that popped into my head when I read this because it's 2020. So November 2020, the distribution code name Trixie was announced. 2023, after Debian 12 Bookworm was released, Trixie became the testing branch. And then this year in March, Trixie entered the transition and toolchain freeze phase. And then in April, it was the soft freeze, and then in May, the hard freeze. And those are just basically software development where you can't change certain things past a certain date, or else it's going to potentially introduce unwanted bugs and stuff like that. So you have to hit these sort of milestones.
So here's a question. If you've got someone like me, for example, who's thinking, you know what, maybe I will try Debian. Do I go and just download 12 and upgrade, or do I just wait till the 13 actually comes out? How does it work?
It's just transition. So it's because they're using names, and Trixie was testing, but now it's going to be the actual release. I don't believe you have to change anything in the sources.list file. I'll have to see, but I'm
If you
pretty
want to
sure
go
it's
from
just
one
stays.
major release to the next, you just change it from.
That's
You
what
can
it is,
either
yeah.
change it
So
to Trixie, or you can change it from. You can either use the names, or you can use the words stable, unstable,
testing or stable, yeah.
table, or it's testing.
Yeah, so if
or
you did
stable.
have if you weren't using the name and you were using the branch, then once it's released, you'd have to switch it from testing to stable if you wanted to stay on that. But most people want to stay on testing, mainly because of that time period you see where it like literally took 5 years to launch it. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in there that like it's, and even whenever I've been running servers or other things, like there are going to be newer packages in testing, and it can be difficult sometimes to run stable once it's been 3 years because those packages have been, stagnating more or less, so you're not getting, unless there's a security update, which they will then, patch something for security, but they're not going to do just like a release to another release. Like if the desktop environment, it's 48 now, but it's always going to be 48 if you know what I mean. So like 3 years from now, whenever it's going to 53 or something, or 60 by then, who knows, but you're going to be way behind. So that's the complaint that people have, and that's why people like rolling releases and da-da-da. But anyway, Debian, an amazing system, and like I said, for right now, at least Trixie is a pretty great desktop system. So enjoyed it.
I was just going to add that I've never tried straight Debian, but to Magid's question earlier, I am, because of my experience with a small hard drive, I am anti-Flatpak, and I make liberal use of PPAs to stay up to date. So as I'm installing my new system, Mint 22.1, I've already added at least 4 or 5 PPAs, because if I want to have the latest version of like some common apps like that need to be updated, like YT-DLP, for example, the best way to do that is a PPA. Same thing with my VPN software, which will lead to another story we get to soon, Surfshark. PPAs to me are a normal part of installing software on Ubuntu. So I would miss them personally if I were to try a straight Debian operating system. I would be wondering, how do I get the latest version of those particular apps?
And there are.
I suppose it's like
I
suppose it's like the other, like we were saying about Arch. I think it's a case of if you have to know what it is you're getting yourself into, isn't it? And there might be certain things that you are table stakes for you that might be not be for other people. And so it's always a very individual choice. That's why I never like people who say, "Oh, you must use this distro or you that distro." Everybody's got different needs and things
So you
like
look
that.
at the origin stories of many distros, and it's because, Debian didn't include non-free, and it didn't support the hardware, and the packages were too old, and da-da-da. And so, Ubuntu's born to make running Debian easier and give you access to, I forget what just easier to basically set up the desktop. So they had a hardware enablement that Debian didn't have. So you could like have your Wi-Fi drivers and, you know, different blobs and things that Debian wouldn't ship. So that was like the use case for Ubuntu. And then Mint came along because Ubuntu wouldn't ship proprietary codecs. And that was like a big draw for people to use Mint at the time, which it's less of an issue now because MP3 is an open standard, whereas it wasn't for a
You had
long
to
time.
jump
And-
through some hoops, and that was where
Yeah.
Mint came in handy, where Mint
Yep.
just worked with all the codecs out of the box.
Yeah,
But
so I
to
mean,
go-
that's the story of Debian is really that it's sort of always been that low and slow,
Yeah.
you know, and then people have added, you know, ease of use type stuff on top. Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt you.
that's fine. I was just going to say that to the PPA thing too, there are just this, well, almost the same way that PPAs are used, developers can make secondary Debian repositories, and some of them do too. They're not always as easy to find as the PPAs because PPAs are almost always on Launchpad or something like that, you know, and easy to find. Whereas the Debian repositories, you know, you might have to do a little searching for that. But they're out there, maybe not to nearly the degree that the PPAs are, but they serve kind of the same general purpose and whatnot. That being said, I've not used a lot of them. I've kind of curtailed the use because bigger hard drives are just a common thing nowadays. So I don't worry about the flat packs as much.
If you wanna understand the real file usage thing, like Linux user space, Leo, did a really good comparison between like 3 different ways of using or having packages installed,
Yeah,
like
he
native
did.
packages, snaps, and flat packs. And honestly, the difference is very negligible if you're using enough. Like if you use 10 flat packs, almost certainly they're going to overlap, and then really all you're downloading is just the executable and not the libraries underneath of it. So, and then having those libraries contained in, you know, containers and packages and being kept away from the system, I think is another advantage. So just, you know, I think there's that Flatpak thing is a little bit of a red herring. You know, I'm not going to disagree that if you have to download just one thing and you look at it and you're like, wow, it's a gig worth of space. That's true. But if you were to download multiple packages, it's the same thing for your packages on your system. If you had to, you know, you wanted to download like something that had a bunch of dependencies, that one small application might be 500 packages because it's like tied into some, like that happened to me early on whenever I thought I could just install stuff from different desktops, and then like the requirements would be the entire, you know, Qt library, like, or all of GTK, you know, and it's like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen.
I look away
So-
whenever I install anything KDE based because that's still a thing. Because it's great
Yeah.
software, but it pulls a lot of
Everything.
KDE.
Everything.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it looks worse than it really is because if you ever look at the actual file size,
No, I know, but if you
you
were
know.
only doing it because you were running one application, that's the same
yeah,
same argument as Flatpak. You're just
Right.
It's the same thing. It's just a different way of looking at it. So it's fine. It's fine. I'm not telling anyone how to use their system. I think it's just that Linux user space might be interesting to some people if they hadn't heard that comparison. Anyway, moving on. So I thought this story was interesting because it's another Linux project or open source project that has a funding model or like a premium version. So I thought
Oh,
this
does
was
it?
kind
I
of
didn't realize that actually. I
yeah.
didn't know
So
about that.
HyperPerks is from Hyperland, which is a Wayland compositor, a tiling window manager, which is built specifically to be used with Wayland and is kind of like an i3 or, you know, one of those tiling window managers. And I've played around with it, and it's actually a very interesting project, and, you know, consistently developed, and, you know, has a fairly sizable community now. And anyway, so the developer decided to do this HyperPerks, which is €5 per month. plus
So-
taxes.
So color me cynical, because I mean I didn't know this, right? Is it not slightly convenient that a lot of this people who are talking about, on in the YouTube sphere, who are changing over and saying, use Linux, use Arch, whatever, have been saying about Hyperland? And maybe I'm just saying it just seems very convenient that it happens to be something which has paid features. Just if it's great
Interesting.
business, if it is, it's great business. If it is.
I don't understand what you're saying.
So okay,
I mean, so let me finish this so you can
okay,
understand
yeah.
what this is.
Okay.
So basically, you get Hyperland for free. It's open source.
Yeah.
This is like what's the DAW? Ardor. This is like Ardor, right? Ardor. The source code is there. You're welcome to download it and compile it yourself, but there's no binary for free. If you want the binaries, so you could just download it and install it, then they want you to pay for it, and it's through like a membership or a premium level, and it basically is we're doing something to make this easier for you to use, and so if you donate or you give us, you subscribe or whatever their nomenclature is, like, we're going to give you this, plus you're going to have access to a certain forum and support and all this, and it's just basically you're not selling the software, you're selling the service around the software, and has been the only real successful open source model besides just asking for donations. So, but from a business perspective, and so basically that's what this developer is doing, is saying, there's a members only forum with access to dev and QA support from him directly. There's a premium desktop experience with a set of pre-configured dot files and a one-click install and update. So Hyperland and i3 and all of these tiling window managers usually just come with a very, very basic configuration file. None of the riced out configurations you see on Reddit or wherever, that's a lot of work to do. And like as you mentioned, PewDiePie, that was a lot of work for him to do that rice on his laptop, which is why he wanted to show it to people, right? But so the convenience here is that the developer is giving you a pre-configured, which I would guess would be a pretty good experience with different modules and widgets and all kinds of like functionality that's not going to be there out of the box. So that's a nice thing. And then you're supporting the continued development as well. Which, listen, if GNOME were to say, $5 a month and you get some feature that you can't get otherwise, or like, I would be very tempted, because I use GNOME literally every day, and I want to make sure it's going to always be there because it's the perfect desktop for me. So anyway,
I wasn't trying to put shade on it or anything like that.
you were. It was terrible.
No. What I was trying to say is that I rate the developer for realizing that there's a business opportunity here, because it's had a Hyperland. Okay, before I finish my point, is there a foundation or a company or anything behind Hyperland, or is it just a case of
It's just a
community?
guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
In which case, as I said, my point still holds true. I'm just saying he's a clever geezer. He's realized that I'm getting my day in the sun here. People are coming and looking into it, and it's a model that you see around the internet. Patreon and all these other kinds of things. You can find a creator, for example, and they'll say, you can always watch my stuff on YouTube, but if you pay £2 a month, you'll get extra Patreon videos. And I've seen this with, because at the moment I'm a guitar player anyway, but my son is now learning how to play guitar as well, and he's been finding YouTube channels that teach and this, that, and the other, and some of the things are okay, this stuff's for free, but if you pay £2 a month on Patreon or whatever, you will I'll give you direct lessons, or there'll be all my tabs will be for free and all sorts of things. You can get my book. which is normally 20 quid or whatever. So I'm just impressed by the developer. I'm just like, good on you, mate. You realized that you're getting your day in the sun here, and milk it, and all of those things for the service is good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm impressed rather than saying it's a cash grab or something.
Well, so, I mean, I think it speaks to the idea that open source projects, first of all, are just free as in beer, and like have no value outside
Yeah.
of what. So, and I think it's nice that maybe he only gets a small percentage of users that care enough to do it. Whatever, that's fine. But it's at least a way to support development, and it also sort of like I'm looking forward to when FlatHub has the ability to accept donations, because I think there's some really cool software on there that I've been using for literally years that the developer has published, dutifully published all the updates on FlatHub, and I've benefited from it for a long time. That if I could throw a couple bucks at them and have it be just through FlatHub itself and not have me have to like go hunt someone down, and then they usually they just have a GitHub page and there's no way to support them, and I just
I mean,
think that would be
I think it's something we've said loads of times on this show and on the other shows that it should become more the norm that developers get some kind of monetary benefit for the work that they're doing, whether that's in donations, whether that's in kind of service plans or whatever. This idea that everything should be free just because it's free, it's not sustainable, number one, right? And number two, it doesn't give a good look that people won't even spend a couple of quid on a piece of software that they might have been using for years or depend upon. It's kind of like, seriously, dude, are you that stingy? Do you know what I mean?
nice about the freemium model is even in apps and things is it gives you a certain amount of functionality with the option of then upselling to more functionality, and that's a very open source friendly development model. And so I like the idea that there is more money, more availability, more possibility of developers getting funded, because otherwise, like you said, they might start doing it as a passion project or something fun to do to learn, because I think a lot of the development is done just simply to learn how to do things. But you burn out, so especially if you're not getting any, like that happens a lot with the GNOME extensions, because each release, of course, something usually breaks, and they're like,
Yeah.
you see them disappear because they're like, I'm just tired of this. I don't get anything for it, and I don't even use GNOME anymore. So, but if they were making some money off of it, maybe they'd think, oh, well, it's worth the $100 a month I make off of it, or however much it is, whatever. All right, get to your story. Enough of this.
Okay. So yes. So next story is something that I found on Phronix. Ubuntu concept for Snapdragon X1 laptops moves to Linux 6.16 and enables more devices. So, what is this about? So, as people might have heard, last year Microsoft were partnered with Snapdragon to make Windows 11 laptops, Copilot Plus PCs that were branded as using ARM architecture from Snapdragon, X Elite, and there was a variety of different chips, and they were used in different price ranges. I think it's fair to say it's not been a resounding success for Microsoft or for the manufacturers, but as someone who has one and uses it, there's definitely a lot of promise there because of the fact that it's ARM. The battery life is significantly better. The performance is, performance per watt is really, something. And it's also pushed other manufacturers like Intel and AMD to actually get off their asses and do something. I mean, AMD kind of were already, but Intel wasn't, let's be honest. And, their new Lunar Lake chips are a lot better. Anyway, so like many other people, I really wanted to see Linux on these devices, and there had been an experimental Ubuntu ISO about 6 months ago. Even when they were released, Snapdragon were really saying, well, we're working with Debian, we're working with the Linux Foundation, we're going to get this stuff into the kernel. And as I said, partly because the things haven't sold, things seems to have slowed down a little bit. Now, yes, Ubuntu did have a release that came out, 2504, but it was very generic, and it just kind of added support for Snapdragon rather than being built for that, those specific chips. And so I managed to put it onto mine, and it worked really well. It had some things that were broken, but it worked well until an update came, and then suddenly the whole thing just died. So now, Phoronix report that there is a new concept ISO that's come out with more experimental patches and hacks that are there. And it includes the 6.16 kernel, which is always a good thing, I think, because it means that these things are now being mainstreamed, if you know what I mean. That if it's in the mainstream kernel, that's now going out to everybody, and hopefully development will, pick up. So I'm quite excited by it, actually.
So, do you think the main benefit to devices like this, whether it's Linux or Windows, is things like battery life?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Definitely. So the device that I've got, which is a Snapdragon device, is my work one, right? And as you guys know, I've not been at work for the last couple of weeks because I've not been well. And I took it out of my bag today, having not opened it for weeks, and it still had a reasonably full battery from when I'd left it. And you just don't see. The only other devices that I've seen like that have been either tablets or they've been the M series MacBooks. That kind of standby time and that kind of just longevity.
Well, but it's not only that, but see, in the past, like a netbook or something was always a trade-off, right? It was always going to be a low-powered, like slow thing, right? If you wanted that kind of battery life. But the promise of these new ARM chips is that, like an M1 or an M series chip, like not only do you get the benefit of that longevity, but you also have performance that's just as good as an x86 chip, or like, and if that's the same thing that's going to happen running Ubuntu on one of these Snapdragon systems, like that's pretty killer.
Yeah.
So
So I did, as I said. And I noticed it as well, putting it on. It was the snappiest, most performant time I've ever used Linux in my life.
Wow.
It was just a bit broken,
Yeah, it's going to take them a little while.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. Yeah. So my worry had been, because that, initially there'd been all these kind of, they even showed off Debian working on a Snapdragon device before the launch at one of their summits. It was in Hawaii. And I remember watching the YouTubers going off. And it's like, what a tough gig you guys have, being paid to go to Hawaii for a conference. What a life, yeah. Anyway, and they were showing off, builds of Debian on some of the reference devices, but they haven't, as I said, they've not sold fantastically, because Microsoft, being stupid Microsoft, instead of leaning into that stuff, they lent into the AI and the Microsoft recall and the this and the that, which, as I'm sure, which we'll get to, later on in the program as well, was just the most tone deaf thing to have gone for. And as I said, the competition have upped their game, and so why would you now go for something which might have some compatibility issues when Intel are making chips which are competitive again, or AMD have Ryzens which are competitive with this?
Real quick,
hang on 1 second.
Charles, are you using your laptop speakers? We're getting a little feedback from somebody's speakers.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can hear it coming back through the mic.
We're getting feedback coming from your speakers.
Unfortunately,
into your microphone.
So if you have like a,
can you use headphones
or,
and still use the
headphones, earbuds, something.
Let me try my less than spectacular.
Okay.
Just so it's not like broadcasting through speakers and then back through the mic. That's all. Anyway, Yeah, I'm with you. I really think that. I was just looking at the kernel support. So the 6.15.1 introduced fixes and improvements for the X1 devices, but many features are still not functional. So yeah, we're sort of still on the cutting edge of that. So Debian, since we talked about that earlier, it's coming. Trixie has the 6.8 kernel, so it's not going to be.
Yeah.
So that's where like Ubuntu using a newer kernel, with hardware enablement, that that's where you're going to see like those types of distributions having support for those machines. And honestly, it's also a numbers game. The more people that have those systems that want Linux on them, then it creates a larger need for it, and then you're going to see it probably get picked up more
And
quickly.
and I think that's been the issue, because the sales of these have not been great, and
Right.
there's even, I actually saw, was it in Prime Day? I saw one discounted. It was literally half price
Oh
to
wow.
when it had been launched. Maybe a little bit. I think it had been launched at about 1,100, and you could get it for 700. So
I don't
mean,
think
I
they've
thought
been
maybe-
sold the right way. When I
Exactly,
first
that's my
started
point. They've been selling them on all this AI bullshit,
right, yeah. Instead of
Rather
saying,
than
"Hey,
saying,
you want a
"Look, man,
laptop?
this is
The battery will last you a week." That's what people want.
Yeah.
And the AI is
just
is
quit
an
with the AI
anti-feature.
nonsense. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
It
an
acts-
anti-feature. Nobody wants it. They don't understand. Honestly, I don't want it. I don't want to buy. My wife needs a laptop. I'm not going to buy her something that has all this AI stuff built that I have absolutely no idea what it's doing.
Right.
A few years from now, maybe once everybody's been using them, and there's more sort of general knowledge about them, but I'm not going to just like take a chance and like, oh yeah, especially if she's running Windows, because like we talked about, I don't know if it's going to be in the show, but we were talking about, oh, we haven't gotten to it yet in security and privacy. There's a thing about Microsoft recall again, and if she's running Windows and it's just turned on in the background, like that freaks me out. I don't want that to run, So anyway, all right. So Jim, you put a story in about the UK.
Yeah, there was many stories coming out lately. This one in particular we shared on the Discord from the Register. UK VPN demand soars after the debut of the Online Safety Act. A major VPN provider experienced a 1,400% jump in signups as users try to avoid age verification checks when surfing adult sites. So that's obviously specific to the UK, but this story in a greater sense has been happening all over the world. There are many sites now that are putting up age verification. If you're in the UK, you want to surf porn sites or certain other sites, so-called adult sites, they're going to demand your ID. But not just pornography. If you want to go onto giant popular social media sites like Reddit, UK users in particular are being singled out. And it's not just in the UK. Obviously, people outside the UK aren't subject to that particular legislation, but there are many sites that seemingly, if you want to make a new sign up, you may be asked to provide your ID. Facebook, Twitter, maybe some others. If your account already exists, maybe they won't question you. If you want to create a new account, you may get asked for your ID. And then on top of that, there are many stories that have been in the news lately where sites have been hacked or just had sloppy security preferences. And if you have uploaded your ID, your driver's license, your whatever, to these sites, it is quite possible that your documentation is out there in the world right now being traded. And, so combine these two things together. Do you want to give, as a regular internet surfer, your ID for any reason, unless it's like for the power bill in your house or your apartment, do you want to give an ID to sign up for any individual site? I certainly don't. And two, can you trust them to protect your ID document, and probably not when major giant companies like AT&T, the telecommunications company here in the U.S. I got a notice a couple years ago that, I was one of millions of people whose all my account details were breached, and they offered me some pittance of a solution, like giving me some credit monitoring, for a year. It's just crazy. There was even a one last thing I'll say. There was a site that women use for dating called TEA. I've never heard of it until this story, but they had an abysmal security practice where all these women who had uploaded their ID to verify, I guess, that they were indeed women or indeed of age, all their driver's license were accessible online. Somebody figured it out. They downloaded all their IDs, and not just their IDs, but since people take pictures of their ID with their phone, most of them have GPS coordinates. So you could, their ID documents with their name, address, pictures and everything, date of birth is now available online with where their location of their house or wherever they took the picture. So it opens up a lot of questions. And, I, for one, am not that eager to be uploading my ID for any reason. I don't know how you guys feel, but, using a VPN seems mandatory
I think
nowadays.
you made a good point, because you got to know that when people are made to sign up, or if they want to go and look at one of these sites, you go on to muckyjpegs.com and you're wanting to, in order to look at the JPEGs, I've got to put an account on here, and most people are going to use the exact same password that they're going to use everywhere else, and these places are being made to implement this technology, and they probably don't have the right resources in place to provide the security necessary to keep hackers away from everybody's information. And now that's one more place, one more attack surface where somebody can get all of these username, passwords, and all this other metadata on people to be sold. And it doesn't take a lot to imagine that somebody might use the exact same username and password combination to make an account on one of these sites as they would their Amazon account or their banking app or any number of things out there. So it is just strangely, it's probably putting people more at risk.
Yeah, more at risk. Yeah.
Than
So there's a couple of things about this. So I'm in the UK, so it's been in our news. Firstly, the way that it was sold, and the way that all the kind of discussions about it, is that it's all about safety, online safety. It's all about online safety, right? And we don't want the children. Won't someone think of the children? Yeah, we don't want the children going on to Pornhub or this, that, and the other without ID. And you're kind of like, okay, fine. But then, as all things, the devil's in the detail, isn't it? Right? I would say that if you really wanted to watch dodgy content online, I would say that you could very easily get around age verification, number one. Number two, as we're showing now with the fact that 1,400% increase in Surfshark or whatever it is, yeah? That's point number one. Point number two, online safety is a very vague term. I mean, what else comes under safety? At what point I have found, when you start digging into the detail, you find a lot more websites or a lot more services being covered by this bill than, just the adult websites. Spotify is under this somehow. Discord is under this somehow. Reddit has already been mentioned. Yet Twitter, X, or whatever that cesspool is called these days, isn't. It's like a lot of technology bills and laws. It has been drafted by people who don't know anything about technology, and it just turns into a power grab or a cash grab, whatever it is you want to say. And then on top of that, because of the way that our political system is at the minute, and the fact that the Labour Party, and it's well known that I'm centre left, if anybody's wondering, but even I don't think it's good for the Labour Party to have such a massive majority that, they can just pump through anything that they wanted to without any kind of proper oversight because they've got a majority of 150. That's a broken system. And I'm saying that as a Labour Party guy. And so it's just kind of gone through like that. And I think the one thing that it was very conspicuous by its absence, was as Jim quite rightly mentioned out, how do you keep this ID stuff safe? How do you know that whatever website it is, Spotify, Pornhub, Discord, Reddit, some other niche one, whatever it might be, has robust security practices? Because, hey, big tech, well, they're well known for having robust security practices, aren't we? It's not like we're going to be talking about another, big tech company messing the security up. That was just never mentioned. Nobody even just talked about that point, which is the more important bit.
It just isn't something that is a core competency for these companies, right?
That's what I was trying to make.
Changed the law, right? They've already decided in many states in the United States and the UK now that they're going to require age verification, but they don't stipulate how that's supposed to work.
Yeah.
They don't give any real guidelines for like who's going to do it, how they're going to do it, and that's what most of the sites that have been listed in states like, so I'm in Florida and we have the same thing. There's supposed to be verification required. And instead of going down that path, a lot of the sites just say, sorry, you're in a place where we can't show you our content. They're not going to go through the cost of implementing these systems because it's just the overhead of having to have the system in place. And I'll tell you what's going to happen is there's going to be some third party that they're all going to use, some service, and it's all just going to get fed into this clearinghouse of data. And yeah, they're going to have pictures of our IDs and whatever other information we've given to them. And then, yeah, it's just going to get leaked or sold to some data broker or, it's just, it does not fix the problem because, yes, the people they're trying to stop from getting on who are underage people are the ones with the most technical acumen who are going to be the ones who figure out a way around it.
Who'll get around it in 2 seconds.
Exactly. So that, it's not going to have the intended outcome. They haven't put any thought into how they actually could enact this stuff. It's just someone, because it looks good on paper, and it's another hand-wringing.
Someone think of the children.
Exactly. So that's yet another example of that. And I'm sorry, we can belabor it, but we got to keep moving because we're running out of time. So we're going to move into security and privacy, and we have an item from Majid.
Yeah, so actually this item's from Londoner, but I thought it was worth discussing, which is that Proton, you could call them the darling of free and open source. Everybody who's into free and open source loves them because, they love their drive and they love their VPN and all that sort of stuff because of their more robust security privacies, put it that way, and their end-to-end encryption. And where the hell is their Linux app? But before that, before I rant about that, they have introduced their own authenticator app as well. So basically 2FA. So we all know that the 2FA is a good security practice. The easiest or the most straightforward ways that most people have seen it has been through, SMS or things like that. But, if you want to be a bit more, that could be, if you want to be a more secure, use specific apps. The problem has been that a lot of the apps are kind of, there's a lot of the time people use something like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, which, again, that kind of worries you. I know Bitwarden came up with an Authenticator app last year, and now Proton have. Now, the only thing I always say about these Authenticator apps is that if you're the type of person, idiot like me, who goes through lots of different devices or has multiple different devices, for your authentication app and your authenticator codes to be secure, they have to be stuck to that device, basically. If you start putting authentication codes up on the cloud, which apparently Google will allow, that's kind of decreasing the amount of how good the 2FA is. I mean, okay, I mean, we can discuss that, but my only thing is that if anybody wants to use an authenticator app, whether it's Proton, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, whatever, just be aware of the fact that they can be device locked, and then a year and a half later, when you decide to log on to that website that you hadn't for ages and it needed 2FA, and you've now got a completely different set of equipment, and then you're like, shit, I can't get onto that. It's happened to me multiple times. I remember, I mean, it's my own fault, I suppose. I took some introductory credit card deal years ago, and I'd used the introductory thing. I'd never cancelled it. I just kind of just left it. It hadn't been used for ages. Then years later, I wanted to buy something, and I was like, oh shit, I could use that, couldn't I? And then I wanted to try and log into it. Where's your authenticator app? Oh shit, I've got a different phone now. It hasn't got the same things. So I've been caught out by it. So it's just something
I did it
that
once. That's a mistake that most people will make one time, and then you never make it again. But yeah, I've had to recreate accounts and stuff, because most of those, if you don't know that, you can't, if you don't have so whenever you turn on two-factor, usually there's codes that they give you that are recovery codes that'll allow you to log in without two-factor. It's instead of using two-factor, you use one of those codes. If you don't have those codes, then yeah. So that's where I say cloud-based does make more sense, especially if it's end-to-end encrypted, like, and you're using a service. Like, I love that Bitwarden has it built in, which so does Proton, their password manager. So you can use two-factor as part of your login. You set it up right in the same place. And then I've had, people say, well, that reduces the security, because basically you're giving
that was my worry. That was my worry. I mean, it's very convenient, but I just wonder.
Well, but they'd have to, the idea being, if you aren't using a strong enough password as your root password, your main password for your vault, your password vault, then yeah. But I mean, that's the point, is it's encrypted everywhere at rest, and you're only accessing it once you've authenticated to it. If you're worried about the authentication, then you could use like a key. There's different ways that you can secure your vault to be, more, protected. But at the end of the day, for my purposes on my hardware and my house, like, it's just easier to have it part of your password manager than have it be some third-party app. Because the truth is, two-factor on most of the stuff I'm doing, unless it's literally a financial institution, it's not that important. Like, I have it on simply because I don't want to get that. Like, it's on my, the app that I use to search streaming services. Like, why? Who cares? Like, it's not going to make a difference.
Leo in the comments, Majid says a simple solution would be to stop device hopping. Just stop doing it.
Yes, I know. Everybody says this to me. Yes, I know. And he is 100% correct.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Don't ever tell Leo he's 100% correct.
Yeah, God. Oh, man. I'm just going to shut my browser down now.
All right. So, Charles, you have one in here for security and privacy. Why don't you take us through that?
No audio.
No. Okay. Maybe just switch to your internal mic just for this section, since you're the one talking.
Well, it's not working.
It's okay. Then so the story is about Microsoft Recall, and that it can still capture credit cards and passwords, and basically be a treasure trove for crooks, which I explained what Recall is to my wife. So, completely non-technical person. Like, she does not understand computers in the slightest. And she was like, why would you ever want that? I said, thank you. I'm like, basically, they're taking, a screenshot of your screen every 2 seconds or whatever, and then using OCR and other technologies to scrape that image so that they can basically create this dossier of everything you do. Like, she's like, that's like a keylogger. I'm like, yeah.
I
yeah,
can't
it is.
understand how they sold this to the powers to be, to the people that are paying for all this. How
You know what this is, Bill? This is those AI commercials that make everyone that's a user look like a moron or lazy, where they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can use AI to do my job for me because I'll just, that makes me really cool because I don't have to. The one that kills me is, I think it was an Apple one where like the kids are giving their dad a gift and like so these kids put all this work into the gifts and then the mom's like, hey Siri, make a photo album for me, and then she like hands her phone to the dad and it's like, here's your present, and they make her look like she's so cool because she used AI. I'm like, yeah, that's
Make it
definitely
stop.
the audience. Anyway, so that's that's what I think of in this situation. Anyway,
So the one thing I'd
Yeah.
say is,
he's back.
oh, sorry, go on,
is back.
Charles.
Yay.
Charles is back.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that article. One of the things it does is that, Microsoft back in last year, a lot of research got a hold of testing, hack,
You're cutting in and out
all the
real
different
bad.
problems. So they pulled it and they went, yeah, they pulled it and they went back. Like they tried to secure the database this time, still got it. But they were doing some tests with it to see if it was whitelisting or black, not capturing password, social security number,
Yeah.
PIN numbers, all these. And it was hit or miss, basically. Sometimes it would not capture it, sometimes it would. Like for instance, now this is kind of a specialized, like if you cut and paste the password from a text file into a form or something, it wouldn't block. It would record it. Or from a Word doc.
Smart enough to get
those types.
Yeah, I got you.
Exactly.
So is it
because
is there an
using
irony?
AI.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there an irony that the thing that's using AI isn't actually that clever and isn't intelligent enough to realize?
I would argue
Is
it's
any of
not
us
using
surprised?
much. Yeah, no,
No,
and
no.
I would say there's probably some AI in there, but a lot of it is just simple, straight up OCR. It's a lot of gubbins like thrown together. Trust me, like it's not
How much
nearly as
AI
intelligent.
Yeah,
is
and then
there
the other
in
thing
AI?
about like the biggest thing they found was like web cache history and stuff. Like if you're like a domestic survive, trying to escape
Domestic abuse. Yep.
domestic abuse, and this thing is recorded, and you share this with your partner. They get on your system and look at your. Oh, hey, my girlfriend or wife is looking to bail or call the authorities or whatever. What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, so it's just still problematic. Why anybody want to?
I just, if we ever get to the point, I mean, we already give our phones a lot of that kind of information, right? I mean, if you're using Google's, what is it, the search that looks at your screen, anyway, like there are things.
Search.
Yeah, so there's things that we already do, that concessions we make for the convenience of being able to use technology in a more straightforward way. I think that you have to be real careful with that stuff, because if you put it on there, people are going to use it, or they're not going to know to turn it off. And if it's easy enough for someone to just like extract that data from a system, and all it is some worm that gets, a drive-by on a website gets, installed on Windows, and all of a sudden it's just whatever recall data, it's just piping that back to some botnet somewhere, and you're just like, I could just, there's no way this isn't going to be abused. It's just like impossible.
Well, and then the other thing that's ironic too is that the vision overhead Microsoft, they keep saying this is a pre-app or something. They use some term to make it sound like it's not ready.
Right, and they also made it at some point. They had made it opt-in instead of like auto you had
Right.
to opt
But
in
it's
to
still, it
switch.
comes up on a Copilot laptop or whatever, prompt you want to install it or
Right. And what do most people do whenever that prompt comes up? Next, get
exactly.
out of my way.
And the other thing that unintended consequence, say you're using this, it gets corrupted, boot up one time, and it's trying to start up and crap blue screen.
Yeah.
That hasn't, right? Because
No.
some bad behavior.
Yeah. It's again, as we have said, they're trying to find ways to use what they're calling AI. And, Microsoft
The other thing,
especially, they've made such a monumentally massive investment in AI. They've spent so much on it. Like, they have got to find some way to monetize it,
well, and the other thing too is that they say they don't train their AI models on, so they claim. But
Sure. Yeah. They don't.
I don't
exactly.
think anybody
And then,
believes that
okay,
crap.
well,
Yeah, what's that
Yeah.
smell? It's the smell of bullshit.
Yeah,
And it's coming
nobody
from their
believes
general
that.
direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
I'm sorry.
but yeah, and then they say, well, even say, for instance, there's some, I don't, they're going to be training on the telemet.
They're going to use exactly. They need that data. Yeah. So.
And it's interesting about this too. I don't know if you listen to Leo Laporte at all. He has Windows Week, Paul the Rock. It's a week or two ago. Leo Laporte was bringing up to him how problematic Paul the Rock is covering Microsoft
For a long time.
saying,
Yeah.
he keeps saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with this. Just disable it. There's no issue here." And Leo Laporte pushed back. No, there is. He says, no. It's people like us, enthusiasts, that claim that this is going to cause all kinds of problems. It's just like total denial. It's not. This is not a problem.
Right. People will
But anyway.
trade. It's just like there's more awareness. In younger people, like people my daughter's age, they now have this concept that there is no such thing as free. Right? They at least understand that whenever they get something for free, in quotes, like they are giving something for it. They're giving their data, they're giving their time, they're giving their content to bolster the content of the site. Whatever it is, like it's not free. And I like that they are kind of have this awareness now so that they can make a choice. Like, I don't really like that I have to give this information. And she's really squirrely about it. And that's, but normal people don't see that right away. They see the convenience, and especially when the manufacturer just makes it sound like it's magic, fairy dust, Like, anyway. All right, we got to keep going, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all I have on that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, cool. All right, well, that's it for security and privacy. We're going to move on to check this out. And just very briefly, I wanted to bring up, there's a new tool that I saw called Ignition. This is by the same guy that made Warehouse, which is an app that manages your Flatpaks. And this is basically, it shows you all of the things that run at startup on your system. So depending on the desktop environment you have, some of them will have like a built-in startup apps application that just kind of shows you what's set up, to run. And this is all very much from a user perspective. So you see the things that you've set, like Discord or Telegram or, whatever your like startup apps are. This digs deeper than that. So it's got all of those as well, which is nice because then it's a single unified place to see that. Because like in GNOME, there is no real, startup apps app, so to speak. But this gives you that, and it separates it though between user startup entries and then system startup entries. And I think it's pretty cool to be able to just look at all of the stuff that is so if your system, you're wondering like what's taking long to, a long time to start up, or, and I could see that potentially there be dragons here. Like if you start mucking around with things that are enabled and disable them, that things aren't going to work. But it's at least interesting to see, because I can imagine if an application was doing something you wouldn't want it to do, that you'd be able to see, oh, what's this startup thing here or whatever. So anyway, just wanted to mention it. Like I said, you can see your startup entries, the system entries, you can add things, change things, and it
This
just
is
gives you
cool.
more visibility. Yeah.
because I can't think of another tool that will show you both the user entries and the system entries, and then give you
It's
the control.
there's probably some way, like a system D level thing, to just run a
Yeah,
command
but to give
into
you
it.
a
But this
GUI
is
where everything's in one place, and then like
Yeah.
some of them don't really, because you've got like desktop file type startup stuff, and then you've got like script startup things, and I don't know of a lot of tools that give you control over all of that in one place.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, this
Yeah,
is
that was
cool.
pretty cool. So it comes as a flat pack is the sort of suggested way of using it, but I think there might be other ways as well. So yeah, links in the show notes for the download from GitHub and FlatHub. All right, so we're moving on. We have vibrations from the ether, and we do have some feedback. Bill, do you want to read that, or?
I will, if that's
Okay,
okay.
Majid, go ahead.
Yeah, just because I think it was referencing something that I had mentioned. So this is from Henrik Hemrin, who I'm sure has emailed us before about multiple different things. So thanks that you're
He
still
has
listening. And
commented on the website. He has commented
Yeah.
on social media. He's been a big part of actually both of our
so
shows. So
so I'm really grateful that you're still listening after all this time. So he sent an email out to our community email. Hi, in the news you talked about LMDE and its use as a daily driver. I use LMDE 6 as my daily driver and started in December 2023. Like Bill mentioned, it lacks the device driver management that standard Mint has. This is one of the major drawbacks from my point of view. When I started in December 23, its Debian base was relatively recently released and the repository also up to date. Well, as up to date as Debian stable ever is. I assume now when Debian 12 is getting older and Debian 13 is around the corner, the differences in package versions in LMD versus standard Mint is bigger. I'm fine with that in most cases. The look and feel between LMDE and standard Mint Cinnamon is negligible. I'm very satisfied with LMDE as my daily driver. The innards about Bash was interesting. I do use the terminal and Bash to some extent, but I'm not good at it. It's a very good to listen to you who are all far more experienced and competent. Well, if the fact that you reckon that we're experienced and competent is, experienced, yes. Competent,
be careful with that second word.
Yeah, exactly. I think this. So I'd mentioned about whether it was time to try LMDE, because last time I mentioned about how I never actually ran Debian, and I did once download an LMDE ISO, but then I wasn't sure whether to try it out or not. And so it's nice to know that people can use it and people are using it absolutely fine. I think the issues that you're mentioning about Debian 12 and Debian 13, well, we've kind of talked about that already with 13 just around the corner. It is something I'm going to try, and if and when I get a chance to. So thanks for the email. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, awesome. Please, everyone who's listening, we love feedback. Anything you'd like to give us feedback about, we'd love to hear it. So, all right. So, housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something you think we should be talking about, tell us. Send us an email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Discord and Telegram. And there are links to these things in the show notes. Next episode is 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, August 3rd. And there's a link to get that converted to your time zone in the show notes. For 465, the next roundtable live stream is 2 p.m. Central on August 9th. And again, that same link is there to convert that to your local time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. And wrapping up. Go ahead, Bill.
Joe couldn't be with us today. You can get a hold of him on linuxlinktechshow.org. He's also at linuxlugcast.com. You can email him, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy him a coffee on Ko-fi. There's links to all of that in the show notes, which, as we said before, is mintcast.org/show notes. Moss also could not be with us today. You can get a hold of him. He's on Full Circle Weekly News. There's a link to that in the show notes. His email is moss@bodielinux.com. His Mastodon is @Zyvola@hosttux.social. And he's occasionally on Hacker Public Radio. I can be emailed at bill@mintcast.org. I'm Bill_H on Discord, at WCHauser3, at Fosstodon.org on the Mastodon, and also check out the other 2 podcasts I'm on, Linux OTC with Eric and Majid, and Three Fat Truckers. Links to both of those in the show notes. Majid?
So you can email me on drmajid@mintcast.org. I'm on Mastodon at atypical_doctor at mastodon.social. The Atypical Doctor on Instagram and Threads. The Atypical Doctor podcast, which is at atypicaldoctor.com. And also on Linux OTC with William and Eric.
All right. And I can be reached by email at eric@mintcast.org. And Charles is muted again, so I'm just going to read it for him. Charles@mintcast.org, and he's Mr. PDX on Discord.
And for myself, they gave me an email, jim@mintcast.org. I'm GNU to Linux on the Mintcast Discord, and I also have my own podcast that I do on YouTube occasionally. It's the Linux Shortcut on YouTube, and I'm also on Mastodon, the Linux Shortcut at fosstodon.org.
Well, before we leave, we'd like to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make Mintcast possible. Our own Bill for audio editing and hosting the server, which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our show notes and raw audio. Archive.org for hosting our audio files. Hobstar for our logo. InitRD for the animated Discord logo. Londoner Londoner for our time sinks and various other contributions. And the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about.
Thanks,
Clam and Co.
And Rat.
That's a wrap.
Thanks everybody for joining us in the live stream. That was a good little conversation going on in there. We will see you next go around.